day 2, everyone, of this new window build, and I've gone to bring these frames that we did yesterday back out because I've got a little bit of a plan. These are the fixed panel frames, remember, with the glass just fixed in there, not for the sashes, but I've got a bit of a plan for how I'm going to configure these frames in the end, so you'll have to stick around to see what I do with those later. So back on camera, unfortunately for you, we've got an empty table. Actually, no, we don't. We've got 2 more frames, and they're for the sashes, so a little bit to get through with these ones. So these are the hinges on the sashes, and as you can see, there's a small scallop detail that runs all the way down that these hinges kind of sit into, which means that the scallop detail continues around and the jamb needs to sit in it too. So on these jamb pieces, I've got this little 45-degree bevel that's already been cut when I picked up the timber, but I'm going to use that and scallop it out further with the router to make that detail that I need to accommodate the hinges. Next step, this little lip, and now we've got to cut the channel to accept the little lip where the door closes. Got the router set up there with that bit in there. What I'm going to do is run this through from this edge 20 millimeters, and from this edge 20 millimeters, and the same on the other two, and then 3 passes, because I don't want to plunge too deep because the thing's just going to skate off on me, and I want to make sure I get a nice clean cut. So the way to do that is not to plunge too deep and just go over it with a few passes, and that should do the job. So that's the first pass. Not bad, not bad. Just a quick thing when routing, the number one thing you need to remember is be patient. Just take your time, go slow, and just let the router do the work. Done, guys, ready to put these last 2 frames together. A couple of holes to fill there, but looking good. More holes to fill, that's okay. I needed to hold these down on the table while I was routing, so yeah, looking good, ready to assemble. Let's do it. Okay, I've got one of the fixed panel frames back on the table now because I've finished 2 frames for the sashes. Anyhow, fixed panel frame back on the table, and as I said earlier, I've got a bit of a plan for what I'm going to do. Initially, I was just going to get one big piece of glass cut and put it inside once the window was installed. Problem with that is there would have been a large lead time on the glass, so I want to get this glass ordered as quickly as I can. So what would be an easier solution is to divide this height in thirds and put 1, 2, 3 glass panels into that, which means I'm going to have to make glazing bars as part of the frame to go at thirds. So the actual measurement from that point to that point is 2166. Divide that by 3. All the mathematicians out there, what do you have? I'll already tell you, it's 722. So I'm going to mark 722 from that point along and 722 along, and then we'll have 3 evenly spaced sections. Do it on both sides and then cut my dividing or glazing bars to suit that gap, and then fix them off. So next step is to measure the distance or the length, the overall width of the bars that I need from that point to the other one. The way to do that is to measure it from the end, so across there and at the other end too, because if you measure it from the point in the middle, as you can see, there's a bit of bow in that timber. If you measured from that point, you wouldn't get an accurate reading, which means that when you try and straighten the frame later, when it goes into the window, you're not going to have a square opening for the glass to go in. So it's always best to measure from the point you know that's fixed, and then when you put the piece in, you just push that across and screw it off, and then it'll be all good. So in carpentry and woodworking, when we talk about timber being on edge, it means like that, not like that. Reason why we do it like this is because a board with a point of pressure coming down on that edge as opposed to that has a much higher tensile rating than it would if it was like that. So if it was like that and you have a board that's longer and it had tension on a point, it would deflect down and bow like that, as opposed to that way. There's obviously a lot bigger surface area and it makes it a lot harder to bend that way when there's a point force coming down on the top of it like that. In this case, it's going to be glass, so I want to make sure it's as strong as possible, and that way it won't deflect over time. You see in, say, residential construction, homes where there are window openings and the frame comes across the opening, the roof frame comes across the opening, you've got a header or a lintel comes across the opening that's like that. So the board's on edge so that it'll support the roof load coming down on top, as opposed to like that, which would be a lot more susceptible to deflection over time. So always stronger on edge, which is what I'm going to do here. So effectively, this is the rail that I've cut here. That was how it was, and I've ripped it in half, and then I'm turning it on edge, butting them together, and then putting them in position. And then all I need to do is screw it from the end and from this end, and that way when the force comes down from the glass, it's not going to deflect, as opposed to that where the surface area is a lot thinner here when the point load comes through, and over time it may deflect. Okay, status update everyone. I got my last fixed panel frame on the table ready to go for the bars. 1, 2, that one is done, and that's how it would look in the opening. And then obviously you probably saw earlier that I have finished the 2 frames for the French window sashes to go in. So Let's keep on going, get this last one finished.